In 1922, several Soviet republics consolidated and Russia became the USSR. In 1924, Lenin died, and shortly after, Joseph Stalin became the unchallenged leader of the USSR. He was called the Man of Steel, and he was a ruthless, cruel, totalitarian leader. He had no problem murdering any opponents or people suspected of opposing him. In the long run, he was responsible for 10 million deaths of his own people through starvation, gulags, and other means. Gulags were work prison camps where people who were not favored by Stalin were sent. In the picture there, you see a fatherly picture of Stalin. It was posed, and he was holding this little girl. Her name was Galia, and in later years he sent Galia's parents and then Galia herself to a gulag. Benito Mussolini became the dictator in Italy about the same time. Mussolini formed the Fascist Party, which was based on extreme nationalism, and you'll see certain recurring themes with these dictators, one of which is extreme nationalism. Mussolini promised to make Italy great once again. They feel like they were slighted in World War I. They were also recently defeated by the countries in northern Africa, and that was a serious blow to the country's ego. Followers of Mussolini were known as the Black Shirts, and this group of people hated communists and the Soviet Union, hated socialists, and they used violence as a threat to silence any opposing views. Mussolini was so powerful that he scared the Italian king into naming him the Premier of Italy. Il Duce, he was called. And he outlawed all other political parties. He also controlled the press, used a secret police, and used propaganda through youth groups to indoctrinate the youth so that they grew up believing in Mussolini and his powers. Again, you'll see these issues of the press, secret police, and youth indoctrination as recurring themes in dictatorships. And of course, we had Hitler in Germany. Germany was struggling. It was, after World War II, it was required to pay back war debts. It was shamed by the Treaty of Versailles. The economy was suffering, and of course the people were generally bitter towards the Allies. Adolf Hitler, however, emerges in the 1920s as the head of this Nazi party. And the Nazi party is again founded on extreme nationalism, but also anti-Semitism, which is a hatred of Jews. Also, much like Mussolini, he had a strong hatred for communism and socialism. At one point, early in his membership in the Nazi Party, he ended up serving time in prison, and there he wrote his book called Mein Kampf. In Mein Kampf, he outlined his views and the Nazi platform. He also promised to create a third German Reich. And Reich is a word that means empire. The first Reich he considered was the Holy Roman Empire. The second was the majestic Empire of Germany. And so this would be, of course, the third German Reich. By the 1930s, Germany was still struggling, and the Nazis, which were now called brown shirts, again used violence and rhetoric to gain power in Italy. So Hitler rises up and is eventually named Chancellor in 1933, taking total control of the country. Once he had total control, he, of course, again, much like Mussolini, controlled the press, made sure there were no other political parties. He also used secret police, and they were known as the Gestapo. He controlled education, down to the very books that people read. And, of course, had a youth indoctrination program. And you can see the poster on the right there. It's some propaganda aimed at German youth. The Gestapo is the picture on top, of course, cruising the streets of Germany. These pictures are amazing because they show the incredible following, and they were also used as propaganda for Hitler. Again, youth propaganda. It's a little bit hard for us looking back on what happened in World War II to understand why Hitler was so popular. But you have to remember that one of the things that he did was he brought Germany out of this horrible depression they were in. And he basically defied the Treaty of Versailles to bring pride back to the country. He rearmed his military, and by putting various social projects in the works, he was able to employ a lot of people and improve the situation. He also had many social policies that appealed to people, and some of those were these social groups. You can see the ladies dancing group up there at the top with the swastika on the front of their shirts. Very organized, very structured, and very much guided by propaganda of the Nazi Party. In the next presentation, we'll talk about Japan and its rise to dictatorship.